It's time to talk about the very worst comic books of the week. And this week, we're going to stay right on DC Comics, and we're doing a Vita Ayala Understudies special. We're doing a Danny Lore comic book. We're going to do a Stephanie Williams comic book. Two comics that I don't think will be read very much by the wider comic book reading audience. And here with me to talk about that is the man so salty he has to be in here for the worst of the week every week. Doc, how you doing, buddy?
I am a human salt lick.
Start licking yourself, buddy. This wasn't a very good week, and sometimes we can find the bright side on these, but not a whole lot of bright to be found from Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, or Multiversity Teen Justice #1.
No, I mean, we've gotten a little lucky over the past couple of months. We've had, the sporadic, thing that we thought was going to be terrible that turned out to be, reasonable. I mean, hell, we actually read a decent Vita Ayala comic. Or a no. Let me
oversell it, Doc.
I'm not going to oversell it. A not atrocious Vita Ayala comic. Like, what, 2 weeks ago? So
absolutely.
I figured there was the option that maybe some of her understudies would get better, but that was false hope.
I thought this was going to be the week you gave up comic books because Nubia, Queen of the Amazons #1 is just really, really bad. We've got Stephanie Williams, Aletha Martinez, Mark Morales on this story. Before Stephanie Williams was co-writing with Vita Ayala, they're giving her the solo treatment, and it seems to have actually gotten worse without Vita Ayala's guidance on this one, Doc. There are a couple of interesting elements in this, but the vast overwhelming majority of this comic book are just trash. The art is about as poor as you will get on a DC comic book these days. As far as the story, there's this amulet. Do you know what this amulet is that Nubia has?
At this point, I've fucking forgotten. I'm guessing it's half of an amulet that makes a thing to give somebody something. That's it.
She apparently had this half of the amulet when she traveled from Africa to Themyscira the very first time. She's had this amulet the entire time, but it's never done anything. Shockingly, now that they've introduced it like 3 weeks ago, it's a big deal. And it turns out that there's this masked character that sees the amulet as the Amazons get ready to visit the Hall of Justice and the Justice League before they die. And that's, I guess, the beginning of the story. And that's probably the most interesting element of it.
Some bad guys in masks sort of want this half of whatever this amulet is so that they can do stuff with things. It kind of reminds me of Vixen's amulet.
So they introduced a somewhat interesting plot element. There's a floating island, which I think is stupid. And then it's just a bunch of weird pages of validation, specifically with a character named Bia. She's been in the Amazon lore for about 2 months now. This is the first trans Amazon. And then randomly, people just talk about how smart and overwhelmingly competent and amazing Bia is, in between talking about how Nubia is like the greatest queen the Amazons have ever seen.
They spent like 2/3 of this fucking comic book validating Nubia and each other. That's all everybody ever did. Even when Nubia wasn't there, they needed to talk about how great and how much of a representative how great of a representative she's going to be for the Amazons in man's world for fucking reasons.
Yeah, it's just complete garbage. And there's no reason for this story ever to go to the Hall of Justice, to go visit the Justice League. It plays no part in the primary plot that's going on. There's the amulet, there's people that want the amulet, and the Amazons are going to the Amazon rainforest to help out protesters to fight like climate change and deforestation, whatever. That's the beginning of the story, and that's the end of the story. And then they take 2/3 of it to just sit around and talk about nothing the entire time. And of course, we get the obligatory Green Arrow sitting down with one of the Amazons asking her to pass the ketchup as she talks about how great Nubia is.
He's suddenly super impressed because this Amazon can just magic the ketchup over to him. He's in the fucking Justice League. At no point would he even be remotely impressed by that. He'd be like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you trying to get the fuck out of here?
The worst page easily is the interaction between what I think is Yara Flor, Wonder Girl, and Batman.
Oh, yeah, where she needs to check her social media on the Justice League's computers.
After she asks him if he has some gum in his fanny pack.
The only thing Batman seems to care about is if she logs out of her accounts. I guess her Twitter account and her fucking Snapchat or whatever, Stephanie Williams may be the least funny person on the planet.
Yeah, then we get a moment where, of course, Nubia can beat the shit out of Hawkgirl. So Hawkgirl asks for the, I don't know, I guess the privilege of escorting the Amazons down to the Amazon rainforest to fight deforestation. If the whole point of them going to the Hall of Justice was to bring Hawkgirl with her, they didn't need to use 18 pages to do it. It was absolute waste of time. This comic book is just absolutely atrocious. And it's the dialogue, Doc. Talking about the stupid, do you have gum in your pouch? I need to check my Facebook account. Like all the worst tropes that you can imagine in one comic book. Of course, they're taking selfies the entire time and every opportunity. And I love when the Flash talks about how the gift shop keeps the lights on in the Hall of Justice. That's the only way they can fund the goddamn thing.
Yep, the gift shop, and that Bia chick decides that apparently they need one in Themyscira. That would require them to allow people to visit Bia. It's not a fucking tourist destination. In fact, it is strictly prohibited. They have a very, very strong anti-immigration policy.
Well, I think it's supposed to be funny. I think it was another joke. After that, we finally do get back to the actual story that only encompasses probably the first 4 or 5 pages of the story, the final 3 or 4 pages of the story. They end up down in the rainforest with the Esquicitas, their sisters, in the actual Amazon rainforest. And, there are bad people around there. And then they blow something up. Apparently, they don't want Nubia to get hurt because they need the amulet. But in blowing something up, she gets crushed by a tree.
Yeah. Isn't she a Wonder Woman? It's a tree. It's going to bounce off her if it doesn't break in half. And I guess the whole thing is to show how bad these people are because they attacked innocent protesters.
You know what the worst part is, Doc? This comic book has some messages to say about deforestation. You know what it was printed on?
Paper.
You know what they make paper from?
Trees.
Absolutely. Any tree that died so that Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, #1 could be printed off was, just a waste of a good tree. There's no reason this comic book should exist. There are no sales associated with anything going on with Wonder Woman right now, specifically with Nubia as well. Yet they continuously give Vita, Ayala, and Stephanie Williams these opportunities to destroy this character and make the character a bigger joke every single month. It's baffling to me. That's the only thing I can say.
If this was your first comic book, would you ever pick up another? Because my answer would be no.
I give this one 0.5 sweet and sour scissors out of 5. It's terrible. So this next comic book, also from DC, from Vita Ayala, understudy, Danny Lord with Ivan Cohen and Marco Faella, Multiversity Teen Justice #1, is easily the superior comic book of these two, although it's not all that good. At least there's action here, Doc. They even start out pretty much with a big action scene. I couldn't believe it.
They started the whole process of introducing kind of an audience insert with this Gigi character that stumbles right into this big fight scene in typical Vita, Danny, well, basically every single woman writing comic books right now trope. The heroes easily dispatch the villains in like 2 pages with absolutely no effort at all, while quipping and just talking about how easy their job is. Then you think you're about to get a bit of like the story following this audience insert character, except for it like decides to not do that for like 15 pages in the middle.
Well, they needed to introduce Raven and his potential romance with Donald Troy. I think it's Donald Troy, the boy version of Wonder Girl within this universe. Donald Troy got Raven's number, but he never texted him back. So there's some angst between the two. They want Raven on the team, but obviously Donald Troy would like to do other things with Raven that are a little bit more mature, perhaps even too mature for characters of this age. And there's a lot of, I guess it's supposed to be sexual tension. I found it just bland, sitting there, not doing anything, waiting for the story to actually happen.
Like they tried to make them look like they were giving each other like goo eyes, but it just looked uncomfortable.
All these characters have really off-putting, really confrontational personalities. None of them are likable. That's an issue.
No, there is exactly 0 likable characters in this. Well, let's just say I'm rooting for the bad guy because like Aqua Girl is just kind of a difficult shithead for no apparent reason. And Robin,
there's this like stupid running joke about their moms and stuff. They try to throw that in everywhere that they can. It doesn't really work, but we do see that Gigi, who has walked into this big thing, she's having hard times. They kind of open up with that. And she's found a church that's going to help her out, but it's Sister Blood in her church. Oh my goodness, we have a female version of Brother Blood now.
Homeless kid recruited into a cult, I guess.
Hey, work for TMNT. What do you want?
This is one of those very tropey DC things that a DC fan would appreciate much, much more than I do. But at least it's telling a plot. There's a story there. There's not just people milling about. Now, there was a lot of pages of people milling about before that. But at this point, you actually start getting into a plot. Granted, it's been
that was
7
surprising,
pages left.
but we do get a trope that you will appreciate. They decided they weren't playing softball like you would in an X-Men comic. I think they were playing field hockey, but they decided for a little bit of sports for some camaraderie. Now, normally in X-Men, this would kind of wrap up whatever story you've been doing, kind of talk about the things and how they work, and maybe some future plans for the characters that would set up the next issues. And this is just all the characters bickering at each other and hating each other.
When the X-Men played baseball, they would like quip at each other, but it was like there was some good-naturedness to it. Like it was more ball busting, whereas this is just angry lesbians playing field hockey.
And then Raven shows up and says, "We're all about to die. I need to join the team now, even though I haven't wanted to be on the team." And I never even returned Donald Troy's text messages, even though we might be into each other. And that kind of sets up the big last reveal. All right, I need to ask you this. Is Sister Blood also Sinestra, or is there two villains?
I think they're the same. I
think they are too, because they had similar haircuts, even though there was a hood on the first one.
I believe they're the same character. I think Sister Blood is Sinestra.
It was a swerve, Doc. We got swerved.
Nobody
I'm
cared.
surprised that they put like a feminine, accent onto the name Sinestra, and so that was good. It should have been Sinestrix, you know what I mean, with an X.
That wouldn't have surprised me. That's about what I would have expected. So Stephanie Phillips, you get a quarter of a star.
Stephanie Williams. Why does everyone get the two completely confused?
God damn, because they both suck and their name's Stephanie. They're like Cullen Bunn and fucking.
And this isn't even Stephanie Williams anyway. This is the Danny Lore book.
Oh yeah, this is the Danny Lore book. Oops.
Doc. Got me sounding as dumb as you.
God damn it.
I'll give this one like 1.5 5-knuckle shuffles out of 5. Certainly a superior book to Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, but not that superior. It's still not very good.
I give it 2 fistings.
My goodness, that's fucking weird, Doc. Jesus, man.
That's a lesbian field hockey book. What do you expect?
I don't know about that. Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on. This comic book wasn't very good. We're not recommending it. As I mentioned at the beginning, these two are understudies of Vita Ayala. I imagine they talk a lot and obviously in the same profession. Vita Ayala is not a very good comic book writer, and there's a lot of reasons. Recently, there was an interview with Adventures in Portes where Vita Ayala kind of talked about a lot of their expectations, how they write books, and you can see why a lot of them fall short. Definitely check this out if you want to see why Vita Ayala, Danny Lore, and Stephanie Williams have trouble writing comic books.